What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about the newest horror slasher film that was just released that I saw the Thursday night premiere of. And I was actually looking forward to this movie because it's directed by Josh Ruben. And Josh Ruben has directed a couple of movies and he's also acted in quite a bit. I've actually really enjoyed a lot of the movies that he's acted in. I really liked A Wounded Fawn, which was a Shudder original movie. And he was actually just recently in an episode of the Creep Tapes on Shudder. He just seems like a really genuine guy who I'm rooting for to make something that I'm really going to enjoy. And so because of that, this seemed like he had a lot higher of a budget than he normally gets to work with, put out by a major production company. So I was hoping that this would be something that I really enjoyed. And the movie I'm going to be discussing with you today is Heart Eyes. Heart Eyes is directed by Josh Ruben. When the Heart Eyes killer strikes Seattle, a pair of co-workers pulling overtime on Valentine's Day are mistaken for a couple by the elusive couple-hunting killer. Now they must spend the most romantic night of the year running for their lives. So, like I said, I was looking forward to watching this movie. I really enjoyed Josh Ruben. I think that he's a talented actor, and I've enjoyed the directorial pieces he's worked on. But this movie, if I was going to describe it in one word, is insufferable. I already have a contender for one of the worst films of 2025. I hated everything about this movie. I was hoping to at least find some sort of semblance of enjoyment in this, but the problem is it tries to take on too much. It does not understand the tone that it's trying to convey, and I've discussed this a million times on my channel already. Horror comedy is very hard to pull off because you have to take the horror seriously and you have to take the comedy seriously. And in this, you're adding a third element, which is the romance, and I don't feel like any of them are focused on in a way that makes any of them pay off in any sort of satisfying fashion. And I'm going to talk about that when I break the movie down for you today. So at the beginning of the film, we are introduced to Allie, played by Olivia Holt, who lives in Seattle. She works at this jewelry company and she creates all their marketing campaigns. And her most recent campaign that she has created is a horrible failure, and her boss is extremely angry with her. And so she leaves work one day and she's going to get coffee with one of her friends. And she bumps into Jay, played by Mason Gooding, and the two of them order the exact same coffee. And it seems to be one of those like, oh, these two people bump into each other and immediately have chemistry. Well, she ends up going back to work and finds out that Jay has been hired by her company to fix her horrible mistake. He's a freelance person who works in marketing. And so the two of them have a conversation afterwards, and he's like, hey, I don't want to have any ill will with you or bad blood. Let's go out tonight. I realize that it's Valentine's Day, but let's go out together and talk about this campaign and see how we can fix things. Well, at the same time, early on in the film, we are shown that there is a killer on the loose known as the Heart Eyes Killer, and he murders couples around Valentine's Day. And this has been going on for a while. Every year he goes to a different city and kills multiple couples. The two of them go together to this restaurant. They end up getting into a little bit of a debate, and Allie walks out of the restaurant. Jay follows her, and she turns around and kisses him because her ex-boyfriend shows up with his new girlfriend, and she wants to make him jealous. And of course, at the same time, the Heart Eyes Killer witnesses that kiss and decides to track them down and murder them. And the entirety of the film is these two people who aren't even dating, that are co-workers, trying to escape from this mass killer who's murdering couples. So like I said, one word to describe this movie, and that is insufferable. I hated it. I have very little positives for this. I'll say a couple of things. For starters, the practical effects are really solid. There's some very gnarly kills in this movie, and I appreciate Josh Ruben's attention to detail when it comes to the practical effects. I really liked that a lot. There's obviously some computer generated stuff mixed in, but I think all the stuff that's practical worked really well for the movie. There's a couple of kills, especially towards the third act, that I think looked really nice. I also really like the look of this killer. There's a moment where he has to turn on like night vision when he's going around in the dark and the hard eyes light up red. And I like little bits and pieces of those things that really kind of flesh out the idea of what this killer is trying to be. And I think throughout horror history, having a slasher icon have very distinctive personality is so incredibly important for the longevity of the film to hold an audience for years and years after it's released. And so I appreciated that a lot. And the very first scene in the movie, really like how sadistic it is. I really like how they paint this couple who's like having an engagement as two incredibly insufferable people. And I was really hoping that that would carry over into the remainder of the film. I feel like that first scene really great, set up what I'd hoped would be a really great thrill ride from start to finish. But unfortunately, that's where my positives end. My first big negative with this movie is the acting in it is completely and totally abysmal from top to bottom. I did not like any of the performers in this other than Mason Gooding, who was obviously in the Scream films. I feel like he does a really nice job, but his character is bland. And that's the big problem. The two lead actors in this movie, they have no chemistry. Every time they're on screen, I'm like, why am I supposed to be rooting for these two people to get together or have any sort of spark? Because at first it doesn't seem that way. It's like, oh, they're just coworkers. But then it's diving into the tropes that you see in every single romantic comedy that you've ever watched. And obviously, that is what the director is going for. But in those romantic comedies, even when they're really bad, normally they cast actors who have some semblance of chemistry together. And these two did not. I could not care less about either one of them. And halfway through the movie, I'm like, how am I supposed to feel any sort of genuine suspense or concern for these characters when I truly do not give a crap about either one of them? And that was what was really difficult watching this movie. Secondly, like I said at the beginning of the review, you are trying to juggle three very different genres. And if you're going to do it, you have to do it in a way that's effective. And this does not. For starters, the horror feels like it's at the back burner for most of the movie. There are like three really great set pieces that feel genuinely suspenseful and that have really good practical effects. But I feel like it's always just cut in inside of this romance, which, like I said, the two lead actors, they have very little chemistry, which makes it even worse because you can't root for the romance. So then whenever it cuts to the romance, you're just kind of bored by it. And then you get back into the slasher movie. And then the comedy. Do not even get me started. This movie is not funny at all. I did not laugh once throughout the entire hour and 30-minute runtime. And the reason why is because everything is trying so damn hard. And you'll understand what I mean if you see this movie and the first 20 minutes they introduce this character who's Allie's boss. And it's like the most ridiculous caricature that you've ever seen in your life of a human being. It doesn't feel like a person. It feels like an exaggerated caricature, but not even a funny one. It's just so on the nose obnoxious that it's like, how are you supposed to get any genuine comedy out of it? And I think, like, I always go back to when you're doing ridiculous absurdist comedy, you have to think of like the Wayans Scary Movie, and those movies don't even work completely, but there's something about them that they understand the confines of the genre that they're working in, that they know the horror angle to take to create a comedic punch. This does not understand the romantic comedy genre whatsoever. It like understands the tropes, but it doesn't understand what makes those movies work to kind of subvert it and make it absurd. And that's what really irritated me about this movie. And then the referential stuff, the cops' names in this movie. There's a scene at the end where Allie's friend is on the phone with her, regurgitating the names of every popular romantic comedy that's been released in the past 20 years. And it's just like so eye-rolly, cringe-inducing that it's impossible to get a genuine laugh to feel like, okay, this person is authentically criticizing this genre in a way that's entertaining. Because first 5 minutes of the movie, when you get introduced to the killer, it feels like a genuine disdain for human beings that are involved in a romance that are so like obnoxious about it. And I'm like, okay, this gets it. In this sort of like small subset of the movie, it understands like how to parody and how to do something in a ridiculous way. But then you introduce us to two characters who aren't likable. So it's impossible to like subvert what we've seen at the beginning of the movie to try to give us a different feeling for the remainder of the runtime. And then the slasher element, when the reveal happens, this felt like it was written in the like during production. Like, we don't know how we want to end this movie, so let's just end it somehow. And that really was obnoxious as well. And then I could go into the horrible editing, the terrible production in this movie, how we just go from set piece to set piece, and like the transition between areas doesn't even make sense. It's like at one moment they're at an apartment building, then they're at an abandoned botanical gardens, then they're at a drive-in theater that they're doing something for Valentine's Day, and it's just jump, jump, jump from place to place to place. There's no cohesion. It's just really irritating, and it's impossible to stay invested for the entire runtime and give a shit about anything that you're experiencing. And like I said, the one word I would use to describe this is insufferable. I haven't watched a lot of 2025 releases yet. This is hands down the worst thing I've watched this year so far. And I would completely and totally recommend skipping this. And if you have not seen it, go watch Companion, an incredible movie that is 100% worth your time, that you will get complete and utter enjoyment out of the theatrical going experience. So have you seen Hard Eyes? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was genuine garbage and I will never watch it again. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.